that what we now have under this new government is a police state. How do you respond?
Well, very clearly, we are not a police state, and we have no intention of being a police state.
The U.S. is so concerned about terrorists coming from north of the 49th parallel, Colin Powell says it may require Canadians to register their personal biometric profile before being allowed to cross the border. In other words, you'd have to have your thumb scanned by a fingerprint reader or your eyes checked by a retinal scanner.
Our border with the U.S. is the longest unprotected border in the world, but since September 11th, that has been changing. Now, several Canadian agencies are looking at new remote security technology that could monitor illegal activity in those thousands of kilometers of open border.
I'm only here tonight to express my concern as a citizen and as someone who takes the metro every day, to inform all of you that there are many of us in the city who know the truth about what happened on September 11th, what happened in London on 7/7, and that you had better make sure that nothing happens to our city, because if an attack happens in the metro and you try and blame it on Al-Qaeda or Iran or whatever they're going to try and blame it on, we will not believe you.
Well, millions of Canadians do it every day, take some sort of natural health product. In fact, close to 3/4 of us take vitamins. But some fear their access to supplements and minerals could be restricted if the Harper government passes Bill C-51.
Red camera on a police vehicle scanning plates in a parking lot. The camera, attached to a computer linked to a stolen car database, will instantly tell car theft cops they have a hot one.
First of all, the bill would compel internet service providers to give all personal information to police about clients that they're taking a look at, such as home address, name, phone number, and so on. And the police can do this without first seeking a warrant, just on their own suspicion. Police can activate remotely the tracking devices on cell phones so that they can track you without you knowing it. And it's also made, it is now a crime to participate with anybody else on the internet for the purposes of child sexual exploitation.
There was also a secret agreement that was signed between the Canadian military and the U.S. military, allowing the U.S. military to operate on Canadian soil under U.S. command, if it has the permission of the Canadian government. Now, how did we find out about this? Well, the Canadian government kept it secret, so did the Canadian military. The U.S. military, though, broadcast it on their website. So Canadians found out through the U.S. that this agreement had been signed on February 14th.
This country's top security official says plans are in place to perform fingerprint and retina scans on all visitors to Canada. Digital prints and photographs are already taken at foreign visa offices, but the incoming head of the Canadian Security and Intelligence Service says that program is going to be extended to include citizens of 60 countries who are able to visit Canada without a visa.
Listening, a CBC News investigation has revealed police forces across Canada are using secretive wiretaps without a judge's approval. The practice is completely legal.
Singled out and persecuted by government forces determined to enforce their own agenda, a Canada where only the police and military have guns.
They want every firearm seized in this country. That's the long-term agenda.
Once a populace doesn't have the ability to defend itself, it's no longer a governed nation, it's a ruled nation.
The debate is settled. The debate is over. Gun control will be implemented.
A balloon that's being tested by a U.S. company in hopes of landing a border surveillance contract. It's equipped with a camera that can read the letters on the side of a ship 14 kilometers away.
It's very straightforward. It's an invasion of our privacy as Sarnians, as Canadians. It's an invasion of our sovereignty.
Absolutely mind-boggling how a government can argue that it makes us safe to remove the rule of law. Because if you think it through, the rule of law is there to protect us from the state. And yet the state is passing legislation which seems more geared to protect the state against us than from us from safety concerns.
That includes the idea of requiring all Canadians to carry mandatory citizenship cards. based on the Maple Leaf cards already carried by landed immigrants in Canada.
We should have a debate regarding what's going on the field, on the vigilance agenda. Should we have a national ID card? There's right now 23 different ID cards in Canada.
Canada's top privacy watchdogs have already weighed into the debate, urging Canadians not to sacrifice the private details of their lives just because the government says it will make the country safer.
Internal police reports reveal that in one case a subject ran from officers during a fare blitz, that's a check for free riders, and the taser was deployed as the subject fled. A second free rider was arrested but grabbed onto the platform railing and refused to let go. The taser was deployed.
I would call it a shocking abuse and misuse of a very significant weapon.
The guy is confronted by 4 police officers. One of the officers fires what sounds like a taser gun. You see it there. The man falls to the floor in convulsions, then stops moving about a minute later. This man was pronounced dead at the scene.
This is what this is about, the taser, which is coming in all over the world. And 55,000 volts of electricity, which has killed a significant number of people around the world. And I saw a newspaper headline when these first came out in America, and it was written by this journalist who'd seen it happen, and the headline was, "Anything you say, officer, just don't use that thing on me." That's what they're here for. People say, oh, it's bad for the taser, people are dying. No, it's good for the taser, people are dying. Because when you've seen people dying from a taser, someone pulls a taser out with a uniform on, you're going to do whatever he says. That's the idea.
Mail, it's usually about the Bilderberg Group. And I get these books on my front door, which I'm uncomfortable with. And it's all about the Bilderberg, like they're the modern day Illuminati. Are you a member of the Bilderberg Group?
I don't think we're supposed to talk about this. No, I'm just joking. The Bilderberg Group is just a think tank. And they get together every year, and it involves business leaders and political leaders from Europe and America, and you get really interesting people. There's never a direction given from the conference, never even a consensus. It's just a matter of debating issues and trying to illuminate the issues.
But Frank McKenna was put on the spot about the Bilderberg Group being the modern day Illuminati, and we should bring that clip up. We're going to play that in the next segment. I mean, his face gets red. He doesn't want to talk. He's like, no, we couldn't be possibly responsible for all that's wrong with the world. And the guy goes, are you sure? You couldn't be?
I think the idea of a world government, which is what Bilderberg is into by and large, the idea of a one world community, a new world order. You know, they see that as...
They see themselves as a government as opposed to a group of world leaders or people with influence at a global level who are talking about global issues, do they?
They see themselves as headhunters. They'll get an up-and-coming politician who they think may be president or prime minister one day, and as globalist, industrialist leaders who believe that politics shouldn't be in the hands of the politicians, they try and influence them with wise words in the corridors outside the sessions.
Need the global economy to recover. It is a global economy.
We're going to have to give up a little bit of our sovereignty in order to make the world work.
We need a new way of thinking, a government that thinks big, that has a global perspective.
We are going to have to take global responsibilities, and there is going to have to be some semblance of global governance on these questions.
There's a possibility of combining U.S. Homeland Defense, the U.S.-Canadian NORAD partnership, and Canada's new command into a single new North American structure.
The Amero is the proposed new currency for the North American community, which is being developed right now between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico to make a borderless community, much like the EU, and the dollar, Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar, and the Mexican peso replaced by the Amero. Canadians are pretty upset about it, whereas the Americans, apart from the Texans, are the only people who know anything about it. The rest of the public's really sort of with their head in the sand on this one.
The strength, a greater global spread to demand and to economic wealth. There may be, to some degree, an eventual inevitability of other economies' currencies becoming also playing some role in a reserve currency.
Everything is to be harmonized amongst the three countries of Canada, United States, and Mexico, and they've been focusing mostly and more quickly between Canada and the United States. But the most important thing that they've been doing to this process is merging the bureaucracies of the three countries. And you have to understand, this is a process of incrementalization. They do it bit by bit. so that you, the public, all of us, the citizens, will be fooled, will be tricked. We won't realize what's going on. Do it bit by bit. And that's a deliberate strategy. We understand the psychology of that. All of a sudden, we'll have a new entity and we'll say, where did this come from?
They're debating the attack on Iran. They're talking about how to take out Hugo Chavez. They're talking about how to get their American Union in that destroys Canadian, U.S., and Mexican sovereignty. So we're talking about the death of Canada is what's happening in there right now. The death of your sovereignty is happening in there right now. CNN has even reported that these individuals have put out the policy reports through the Council on Foreign Relations that writes their scholarly white papers to end the United States, to end Canada, and to end Mexico.
And it's not even on our radar that the government may be trying to pass legislation that violates our rights, that takes our rights away, that moves away from the rule of law. And we cannot sit still and allow that to happen, because we set the precedent. Even if the government doesn't do anything unreasonable with it for a long period of time, we've set the precedent, and it is too dangerous of a precedent for us to allow to be set.